Basically, they'd crest the hill, shoot, and then reverse, and then move to another part of the hill, and then crest up and shoot again. All of us were doing this at the same time, and I'm actually surprised there wasn't an accident. Hey, in this video, you're going to learn what to expect when you go to ABOLC. I'll give you the course map, some examples of, or stories from my experience there, and I'll provide you with some recommendations for how to prepare for it. ABOLC is currently a 19-week course at Fort Moore, Georgia, and it's a PCS move for active duty soldiers, which means that you'll either choose to live on or off post, and Guard or Reserve soldiers will stay at the hotel on post. ABOLC is broken up into 4 blocks, and your cadre will change as you progress through each block. So what does Block 1 consist of? Well, Block 1 is your foundational phase. You're going to sit through days of PowerPoint classes, begin a writing assignment, and have some online training to complete before moving on to the fun stuff. In Block 1, I remember there being a property class, a class on some helpful websites, and then the usual TRADOC and annual Sharp and EO briefs. You'll show up in the morning and do PRT and some shorter rucks and a bunch of running, so show up to ABOLC in shape. Starting on week 2, you'll qualify on the M4 and M17 weapon systems, and you have to pass both day and night LAMNAV courses. You also throw some hand grenades and make shit go boom. I remember during the crawl phase of LAMNAV, we were out behind 216 Cav, and it was late summer. There were still some swamps and a lot of giant banana spiders all over the place. One dude in my class was walking through the course, and he fell into like a waist-deep swamp. When he got out, he was covered in black sludge. I'm pretty sure it ruined his uniform, so there's a few things to watch out for out there. I remember taking the ACFT around this time as well. It'll be on a grassy field in the middle of a track, just in case you were wondering. Up next, the course map says that you're going to do driver's training. I'll be honest, I don't remember doing driver's training at this point, but you could probably expect to do Humvee or JLTV driver's training if that's what they're doing now. Back then, in 2020, I only got to drive tanks while I was there. After that, you'll move on to Block 2, which we refer to as tank phase. So during this phase, we had to pass vehicle and ammunition identification tests, and I remember that if you don't get it first time goes on them, you'll be out of the running for the Commandant's list, and you'll miss out on this sweet coin right here. We had quite a few people that had to retest on these, and we even discovered that one of the LTs got armor, even though he was colorblind for green. He ended up guessing right and moving on without cadre ever finding out, but you're not supposed to be colorblind in the armor branch. Also in Phase 2, there's the Gunnery Skills Test, or GST, and the HPDT, which is the High Physical Demands Test. I'll be honest, the HPDT sounds harder than it actually is, and all the AIT soldiers have to do it as well for their MOS. You'll do the HPDT in full battle rattle, and it consists of 1, dragging a casualty, 2, conducting a 12-mile ruck march, 3, employing hand grenades, 4, carrying and placing sandbags, 5, removing a casualty from an armored vehicle, 6, stowing ammunition on an Abrams tank, and 7, loading the 120mm main gun. You'll end up completing the 12-mile ruck march later in the course, but the casualty drags, sandbag carry, and the grenades are pretty easy. The casualty removal sounds hard, but you're pretty much just going to stand on this platform and then pick this heavy thing up from inside of a hole. The hardest part was actually loading the main gun. You'll have 7 seconds to open the ammo door, grab a 35 to 45 pound dummy round, then you're going to shove it into the main gun and then arm the system. You'll give you a few practice tries, but this was the hardest one, in my opinion, just due to the time variable. For the GST stuff, you'll have a few days to familiarize yourselves on the M240, the M250 cal, before being tested. They'll provide your squads with the steps and performance measures for unloading, loading, and clearing a jam, as well as bore sighting, etc. During the beginning of Block 2, you're also going to learn how to conduct PMCS on both the turret and the hull of the M1 Abrams main battle tank. You'll be broken into 2-man gunner and commander crews, and you'll stay in those crews for the rest of this phase. Your crew will be given a time limit and tested on the whole PMCS. It wasn't really hard, but the thing that kept giving crews issues was the heavy-ass engine backplate that you'll have to slide off and on. You'll see. After the HPDT and GST and the PMCS portion, you'll start learning the AGTS simulator, and you'll have a few days to pass all of the video game levels as both a gunner and a commander prior to going to live fire. You'll also be introduced to fighting under degraded conditions in these simulations. For example, not being able to use the gunner's hand station and having to like manually traverse, or maybe you'll react to CBurn and have to talk while wearing a gas mask. Or maybe the ITAS doesn't work and you have to use the day sights or the gas sights to engage targets instead. I will say here that the AGTS for tanks and BATs for Bradleys are still a requirement once you get to your unit before you shoot gunner each time. I've never been on the Strikers, so I don't know if they have an equivalent, but you can think of the simulator training as like the EST 2000 for M4 quals. Up next, you'll all go out to the gunner range each day and take turns conducting LFAS, which is basically just making sure the tanks are zeroed. You'll be practicing gunner and commander scripts, conduct the table 3 for day and night, and then you'll conduct a modified table 6 for qual day and night as well. There was a lot of sitting around and just waiting for your turn during this portion, and then only a couple hours of actual time on the tanks. The biggest takeaway here is that during Table 6, there's going to be a cadre member as your loader, a soldier as your driver, and then your crew will take turns either as a gunner or commander. There's going to be microphones and cameras installed inside the tank so that they can evaluate you. You'll get to watch your Table 6 during the AAR afterwards, and here's a quick video for my qualification during ABOLC.
Okay, you're not the troops there. for the most part, you had another target in the CITV at all times, or just that's really the key. The CITV is always at another target, like you guys had it, and typically you're gonna be in good shape. Oh, there's a fucking delay.
On the course map, there's a portion for combatives. When I went to ABOLC, it was during COVID, so I don't think we did them, but you can expect to. Alright, so now we're on to block 3, which is the dreaded op-ward phase. I'm only halfway kidding. During this block, you'll mostly be in a classroom setting, learning about doctrine, about the offense and defense, taking tests based on the doctrine and military symbols, and then you'll learn how to draw the map graphics. I'll be making videos about military symbols and map graphics in the near future, so be on the lookout for those, or look to see if I have them linked in the pinned comment or the description below. The hardest part of this block is the limited time that you have to flip and plan out an op-ward, and then draw out all the graphics. You'll have 4 op-wards to do in this phase, and then technically 1, maybe 2 in block 4. I remember during the gate op-ward, the 4th one, which I think people actually can get recycled for failing, is in a field environment. Our class rucked out into the dark, freezing training area where we received our op-ward and then had a matter of hours to flip it and draw out everything. We then had to make a terrain model out there and then brief our op-ward. If it's like foggy or wet conditions, be prepared for your markers not to work very well on wet acetate. My advice for these op-wards is to focus more on the content than the neatness of your graphics. Another piece of advice is that you'll be given an op-ward shell to use at ABOLC, and I highly recommend printing off additional copies and laminating one so you can bring it to the field in block 4. I have the laminator I used as well as some other helpful links linked down in the description below if you're interested in checking those out. Other than the op-wards and the classroom stuff, there is also the CCTT and the Ares Battle Lab, which are both pretty cool. The CCTT is almost the same as AGTS, however you'll have groups of 4 and either conduct simulated missions as a squad or as a platoon. You'll be talking to each other with FM comms and then operating the tank as a crew to prepare you for the Styx lanes block 4. Honestly, CCTT and the Styx lanes were probably the most fun parts of ABOLC, and you'll get to see why when I get to some of the stories in a little bit. The Ares Battle Lab was a pretty cool concept, but it was kind of slow to use. It's basically a hologram looking thing that's projected down onto this like sand table, and you can control it with an Xbox controller. Alright, after all that, then you advance to block 4, the tactical phase. You'll end up reporting to one of the further out training areas in this phase, and you'll have to stay the night out there for most of it. When I was there, they let us go home twice during this phase for a laundry reset, but that could have had to do with COVID and like washing our masks or something. I don't know, let me know down in the comments below if they're still letting y'all go home at all. The first couple days, some unlucky LPs are going to have to sign for all the miles gear, and then you're going to help install it. But this is also the part where you get to actually drive and command tanks. You'll do some on-road, off-road, and water crossing familiarization training before beginning the Styx lanes. You'll do some smaller scale crew and squad lanes just to get a few practice reps in. After that, then you'll take turns doing platoon versus platoon lanes, and you'll be graded on your op-ward brief and your ability to command and control a platoon. I will say here that when you get to ABOLC, they're going to recommend that you get a battle board. This is the one that I made and used, and it made a pretty big difference while battle tracking, coordinating, and setting up reports. I'll make a video soon on how to make one for yourself, and I'll include a link down in the description if you just want to buy one because you don't feel like making it. When I did my graded lane, I was able to predict where the other platoon would set up their defense. I called for fire, and it landed on enemy tanks, and then I also conducted a feint enveloping attack. I got the other platoon to think that I was attacking up the middle most obvious route, and then traveled all the way to the boundary of the training area, and then skirted it up for a flank attack. I called for a smoke mission in the center area where they're expecting us to use after I had already made it to the other side, just to trick them into thinking that I was about to attack right there. Then right before attacking, I had all 4 tanks get online at the bottom of this hill, and then we conducted a top hat and all crested at the same time. The other platoon was totally oriented towards the center area, and we killed the whole platoon with flank shots while only losing one of our own tanks. All of the tank commanders typically stand on their TC chair and then like pop out of the hatch to get a better situational awareness of the area. So I could see that the other platoon leader was not happy at all that we just slapped the shit out of him. But anyways, during the Styx portion, it's also important to note that you'll be sleeping on or in the tanks, and you'll have to take turns pulling fire guard or conducting hourly radio checks each night. You're going to occasionally get attacked by Op 4. At the end of this phase, you'll have the culminating event, the company Styx lane. This isn't a graded portion, however, we had 2 versus platoon lane, and I got to be commander for this as well. It was pretty fun. One group was on the offense and then conducted an attack, and then they transitioned into a hasty defense, while the other group that was just in the defense retrogrades, reconstitutes, and then comebacks for the offense. During my turn in the defense, I remember it was pretty fun and chaotic between coordinating between your own tank crew, your platoon, the other platoon, and battalion headquarters. They call it helmet fire because the radio traffic is just non-stop and you're constantly switching between radio channels. We also found this IV line to defend behind, and I had our platoon running survivability drills between each shot. Basically, they'd crest the hill, shoot, and then reverse, and then move to another part of the hill, and then crest up and shoot again. All of us were doing this at the same time, and I'm actually surprised there wasn't an accident or something. Trying to tell your driver where to reverse and then pop up while telling your gunner what targets to engage, all doing that while the radio traffic is just going on, it's freaking nuts. Finally, after all of that, you'll conduct this big AAR and you'll go back to download the weapons, radios, and miles gear, followed by a cleanup of all the concrete pads. Eventually, you'll meet up at the wash rack and clean off all the caked up mud, empty the bilge pumps, and clean both the inside and outside of the tanks. Once recovery is done, then you'll get ready for graduation. If you found this video helpful, then let me know by giving it a like and consider subscribing to this channel. I got a bunch of other videos that you'll find helpful as well, so thanks for watching and go check them out.